Hey Troopers, getting back to you here with a little more on this fuel tank and a little more on the electrolysis. I had the fuel tank pretty much finished. I was very happy with it, but around this ring here, this is where the main fuel pump's going to sit, and it's just a little bit of rust in that gasket. It's a double height spacer with threads right into it, and the threads are in pretty rough shape. And again, around some of these vent holes, you can see there's a lot of rust in there. It's a little difficult to get out, and the way the metal is pressed together, it's really hard to get the rust out of the seams. And same down here on these vacuum tubes, or the vent lines, right down there where that tab is kind of spot welded onto the tanks. They're a little bit difficult to get clean, and so I'm just going the extra mile here, and I'm using the electrolysis. Got some pretty interesting scum building up. It's this yellow shit. I don't know where it came from. I mean, I've got my skid plate off of the front of the truck in here, and I've got my fuel tank in here, and they were both pretty clean before I put them in here. I just threw that that bumper on the side here. So what I've got here, again, just for the sake of repetition here, if you've seen this before, stick with me here. That's a 1 amp battery charger putting out 12 volts. Right? And so I've got the positive lead from the battery charger connected to a cathode here, but I'm also splitting a couple of lines off of the main clamp here to a secondary cathode down there, and I've got a third cathode down there. And so I don't know if you can see it with the, see that sparkling? That's air bubbles. That's thousands and thousands of air bubbles rising to the surface. I'm holding the camera right on where the light is so you can kind of see what's going on. And if this camera were a little bit better, see, I'm not dropping stuff in the water. I haven't really moved the tank around. The motion you're seeing with the particles in the water, that's the electrolysis. I mean, it's just a really active process. And the way I can get this active the best, I find, okay, is so I got my 1 amp battery charger, as I told you. I got my So Clean Arm & Hammer, that's sodium carbonate, and I just boil a little water here, and I mix in a cup of this sodium carbonate into the pot. I put in the boiled water, and then I dissolve it. And I don't really move this solution until I know it's dissolved, because those crystals, if you put cold water on them, you'll see what happens. They just clump up and they just become like this rock hard piece of salt, right? And so once I get it mixed up in there with the hot water, I'll throw in another kettle of cold water, then I got a full pot of water, then I dump my solution in here, and I can immediately throw the garden hose in, and I can get it going. You know, that garden hose cools down the solution, but it doesn't matter, it's already dissolved. And so I've gotten a really good dispersal of the electrolytes into the water, and then I take my cathodes before I ever start a new bath like this. It's a, you know, pretty much a brand new bath, and so I take those cathodes over to the shop grinder, and I grind the shit out of them and clean them up real good, so that when you put them in, you know, they're pretty much rust free, and you're down to pure iron and a nice flat scored surface. And as soon as you connect your electrodes, you're gonna see that go to work, right? You're not gonna see a lot of sparking off of this cathode because I've got these two leads here, but if I were to say disconnect this and then only have one cathode, it would make an arc when I go to put this on. And that's how I know that my cathode's working really good, is because it's attracting an arc from the charger, and it won't do that right now. Like I said, I've got 3, so it only really shows you if you have one cathode. And if you got one cathode in the water and it looks pretty rusty, like I said, it's scum magnet, right? So if it looks like it's rusted up pretty good and you're not sure if the solution is working really good, try pulling your battery clamp off and see if you get a spark. And if you don't get a spark, clean up your cathode, put a stir stick in your water, stir up all your sodium carbonate and get your electrolytes flowing, and then throw that cathode back in there, throw that charger back on, and whammo. So I'm going to come back here tomorrow and there's going to be some really nice crap built up onto my cathodes. I've got my one lead to my skid plate from the negative over here. I've got it over to one side, and then I've just rested this metal body mount. You know, the outside metal ring is touching the skid plate, and so I've got a secondary lead there. So you know, it's not just coming from one side. I'm putting that all the way through, and as much contact surface from the cathodes as possible. You know, this direct line of sight electrolysis starts to occur, and then the electrodes just start to act like, or the cathodes start to act like magnets, and they just start pulling all the scum. I don't even know where that came from. I mean, this bath is frickin' 10 minutes old. I may be getting some varnish. I'm not sure about this yellow stuff at all. I've never seen that before. I think that may be some of the varnish delambing on the inside of the fuel tank, or maybe that's just some old fuel residue. Either way, it's coming out of there and it's coming clean. I got a brand new fuel pump and fuel filter bag for the bottom of the tank and everything, and I even have some POR 15 fuel tank restoration fluid, so I might swish that around in there, but I was saving that for my 61 Comet. Trooper shouldn't really need it. I'm going overboard on this fuel tank for sure. It's going to be like a brand new item from, you know, top to bottom, and it's going to have POR 15 armor all over it. So the idea is that once I install this fuel can, I don't ever want to fucking touch this thing again. Alright, troopers, that's the electrolysis update for now. We'll come back and have a look at it tomorrow morning and see what those cathodes are looking like. But I'll probably leave these two pieces of metal inside the bath for, say, 3 days. I think I might have to top up my water a little bit, because I've got this pipe just kind of sticking out a little bit. So add on some evaporation and my level might be a little bit lower in a day or two. So I'll top up that water and it should be good for a while. Later.